Hey guys, it's Tim Vixay here, host of My Crippled Friend. We're doing episode 3. We got some new audio equipment. It's should be a much better quality show. I'm looking forward to doing this one. I'm sitting here with my good friend Jeremy Robbins. It's April 20th, and we're in Oregon, and I got cottonmouth. I don't know what. I don't know what that means.
Well, it means it's Cannabis Christmas, and Santa Snoop has blessed us with lots of treats for all of the goodness that we've had all year long.
Yeah, I guess we can look at it that way.
Do you need some water?
Oh, I got a bottle over here.
Sweet.
Yeah,
Sweet.
probably should take a swig of it. We also got Amy in the room. She's your girlfriend.
She is my girlfriend.
How long have you guys been together?
Oh,
Jeremy, how long?
2.5 years.
3 years in August.
3 years in August.
Yeah, it's a good thing. We have a lot of fun.
Did you see the thing that Dr. Phil did a while back?
I did. Yeah, I didn't really watch it in depth. I thought it was pretty fascinating. When I was injured way back 20 years ago now, that was pretty much the consensus that, like, if you wanted to continue to be in a romantic relationship with somebody, and you had to make a choice, were they going to be your caregiver or were they going to be your lover? And I think that the reality is that people that are partners of quads encompass both of those roles all the time anyway. That's just always kind of how it is. I don't really believe, what he said. I think it's, again, like, times have changed. There's a whole different world of caregiving too. And I don't know why but they preached this to me when I got injured. They were like, yeah, dude, wow, kind of one or the other.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, Dr. Phil did a show, I think it was like a month ago, and he had a nearly injured quadriplegic on. I didn't watch the whole episode. I saw the clip. But he pretty much said that a new term I learned too was interable relationship, which is kind of akin to like interracial relationships where one person's disabled and the other is able-bodied, or a walker as we call them. Yeah, that's actually kind of a funny term.
Interabled, yeah. I kind of struggle with that a little bit. I don't know. It doesn't roll off my tongue very very easily.
No.
What does that mean?
Let's not make that a thing. Like, a relationship's a relationship.
And
either way.
From what I've witnessed is that we have just exactly the same shot that anybody else does out there, and it's kind of a 50-50 shot, and that's it.
Yeah, it definitely. I've been single for some time, and I don't really ever go out much, but you do notice that, like, when you go out, like to a bar or to a club, you get noticed in the chair. So
yeah,
it's a great conversation starter,
and it can be quite a magnet if there's more than one of you. I'm sure from the wheelchair rugby days.
Oh yeah.
Anytime that 3 wheelchair users get together in a club, we pretty much are the party, and everybody is just gonna gather around us.
Oh yeah, we've when I used to live in Vegas, we've rolled deep into some nightclubs, and it would it would be a party, because I mean, for one, you like when you're in a chair, you live life at ass level, So you're constantly staring at people's asses, guys and gals.
Guys and gals.
So when you're in a nightclub, it's just booty galore.
Booty galore. And we used to just kind of surf on the backsides of folks, just as instead of pushing with the push rims, we would just kind of grab asses. But
and you get dragged in, like, I mean, people. I mean, you become just like a walking lap dance. And your girls are just grinding on you. It's insane. It's fun.
This is fun. Yes. So I do remember
a long time ago. I don't really. I'm not into that anymore.
Yeah, me neither. Long time ago. So at least
At least 4 years, right?
Yeah.
3 years in August. No, I wanted to have you on the show because, obviously it's 420 and people in chairs seem to be kind of more open to medicating. I've definitely met more stoners per se. I don't know if you take offense to that word. I've met a lot of stoners that are in chairs. With good reason. It's for guys like us, it's a medicine that helps us cope with our pain, anxiety, appetite,
spasms.
Spasms is the big one.
Yeah, and so I noticed pretty early on into my injury that there were a lot of things that I was being given individual medications for that when I used cannabis, it seemed like I didn't need those individual things. It was more of an umbrella. Not to say that it was a cure-all by any scope of the imagination, but it just was always kind of a part of what I did. And for me, up until 6 years ago, I didn't really talk too much about it, and then legalization started happening, and I recognized pretty early on that as a patient, which is really truly to my core what I am, I started losing the ability to get the medication that I needed in the ways that I was used to getting it. And so I felt like it was just time for me to kind of come out of the cannabis closet, so to say, and become an activist. And so I spent a lot of time talking to people, politicians, healthcare professionals, a lot of moms, just people that have an idea about what it may or may not be, but haven't really talked to somebody that uses it on a regular basis, or that has kind of a background with a bunch of information. And so that, for me, what that's led into is now I run a cannabis patients group. And so every the last Wednesday of the month, so next week, the 24th, there's a group of us, anywhere from about a dozen up to like close to 40, that get together, and we talk about cannabis and what it's doing for us, what sort of
it's like a book club.
It is. It really is like a book club for cannabis. I am by far the youngest person that's there. I'm also the only person that has a physical disability. By no means am I the only person that is disabled, and in most respects, I have way less issues dealing with my disability than the people that come in. I mean, really, really complex things that I was blown away. I still am kind of blown away by. And so there's definitely, seizures, a bunch of cancer stuff, but then other kind of strange things like restless leg syndrome, dealing with taking Ambien for sleep for like 20 years.
Jesus.
And so the other side of it is that there's been a big rise in this thing called CBD, or cannabidiol. And CBD is a really great approach for a lot of conditions. I think it's a really good way to get people in to talk about cannabis. But in all honesty, I think that CBD without THC doesn't really do very much good. I think that you always have to have THC in conjunction with it.
Yeah, they piggyback off of each other.
Yeah, they call that the entourage effect. And for me particularly, and for most people I know with spinal cord injuries, they definitely have to have a combination of the two. And so, in 2001, I went in and talked to my doctor and was like, I was wondering if you would sign this medical marijuana form for me. And I was super nervous about it. Just wasn't sure. I was a couple of years into my injury at that point in time. Just wasn't sure kind of how that would go over. Had zero pushback from my doctors. In fact, he was like, yeah, this is a really good idea for you. And I've had, I did not turn that particular form in. I waited a year just because I was nervous about the way that the system was. Had him sign it again in 2002, and I've been licensed with the state as a medical cannabis patient for 17 consecutive years.
Wow.
So then the conversation needs to come around like, well, how come I have to register every year? How come they just can't say, we see that this is something that you're going to use for the rest of your life. Why don't you just, the way in which I use cannabis has changed pretty dramatically, especially within the last 5 years. And so it's kind of different now. I actually can remember asking my doctor for weed, and he was like, bro, I can't help you out with that. I really wish I could. And if you find any, totally let me know. But he's like, you're on your own there. And so what I had to do is I had to learn how to grow. And, it's a whole different, when you're relying on a medication that you have to procure and or produce for yourself, it changes things. First and foremost, a doctor can't really tell me, no, you can't take that, or you can only take that 4 times a day, or you can only take this at a certain time. With cannabis, I had to determine all of what was going to work for me and what wasn't. And so, finding varieties that worked, especially in those early days, was really challenging. We went to Canada and purchased a bunch of seeds and actually had to smuggle them back across the border, which is really strange to think about now.
Yeah, because it's. I mean, back then it was the Wild West.
It really, and we were, legitimately nervous, about getting caught and thinking about, well, I wonder if Canadian jails are better than American jails, and all these.
100% they are.
Good to know. But again, I was just trying to get to the point where I could produce medicine for myself. I was lucky enough that I had a good friend that helped me out. Pretty quick after I got that permit, we planted seeds. We planted 100 seeds the first time around. That's a lot of seeds, especially if you're just a little.
I don't know anything about growing at all.
Yeah. So 100 seeds is a lot, but we had this thought pattern, which was, okay, well, 50 of them are probably going to be male. Because cannabis is either male or female, and you have to make a selection. There's some little tweaks to it now where they do have some feminized seeds, but back then that wasn't the case. So we thought, okay, well, 50, we're going to plant 100, 50 of them we're going to throw away automatically. Then we're going to have 25 of those 50 left that we're probably going to want. And then out of those 25, we're going to keep 12. So mind you, the law at that time was that I could flower 3 plants and that I could have a total of 9 plants, and I had 100. So 98 of those plants turned out female.
Where were you growing this at? Just in
This
a
was
closet or?
Yeah, actually, it was in my buddy's basement at the time. And it started in a closet because all those plants turned out to be viable females. We quickly had to expand into his entire downstairs basement, which his wife was not impressed with at all. And so we ended up with like a bunch of extra plants, and I didn't, I was trying to follow the law. I was trying to minimize the management of all that stuff. And so I started meeting people and giving away cannabis plants. And so, you become pretty popular pretty quick when you're giving away free plants, and you meet some really interesting characters too. And so that was kind of how I got established in Portland, and learned how to grow, which is a lot of work from a wheelchair for sure. So the reality is that most people that I know in wheelchairs use cannabis one way or the other. If you go on the boards, on Facebook, all of the groups, there are many, many questions that are answered with, CBD or THC or cannabis. And I think that, that's good. I think that it does provide relief for a lot of conditions. The problem, though, is we really don't know why, and that has been one of the things that's kind of dogged me over the years. Is that I know that this is medicine for me. I know that it works effectively, but I really didn't know, like, scientifically what was going on and how come it was affecting me in certain ways and not in others. So, for instance, I don't get pain relief from cannabis. It just doesn't relieve my pain.
Interesting. Yeah, that's actually one of the reasons why I use it is to manage, just the lower back pain, tightness in the hips, and then the biggest one, I think, what really got me into it was insomnia or quadsomnia.
Okay.
I mean, for whatever reason, I don't know if you experienced it, but
still do.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like, most quads I know just have the hardest time sleeping and staying asleep.
Correct.
And a lot of them are like night owls. They'll just be up to like 3 a.m. gaming or on their laptop or just, being productive, like actually being productive.
Right.
It's really weird. I used to stay up till like 3, 4 a.m. watching Netflix.
So, I'll go to sleep and then I'll start having spasms around like 1, and the spasms will usually wake me up. I'll be awake from like 1 until 3 or 4, and then I'll usually pass back out.
Like full body spasms, or
typically like lower leg spasms.
Yeah.
Sometimes related to my bladder, sometimes related to my bowel, sometimes just because my body decides that's what it wants to do.
Man, dude, I feel like I hit the lottery when it came to being a quadriplegic. I mean, a little bit more tricep would have been nice. Some hand function would have been nice.
Right.
As far as like the things you don't think about, I think I got lucky because my spasms aren't really that bad. When I first will like get into bed and straighten out, I'll shake out a little bit and kind of twerk a little.
Yeah.
But that's, less than 30 seconds.
And then you don't really experience too much more if you have other, it's like you put a quarter in the bed and it's shaking for me. She gets a nice massage, and every time I roll, it's like that.
Yeah, when I move around sometimes, but I have, and I also have like fairly good sensation.
Okay.
So I can tell when they're about to spasm. Like if I'm driving, I kind of like
that little
feel it like in my leg.
Yeah,
it kind of creeps up on you. Like, all right, here it comes. Like, brace yourself and don't.
And so, will cannabis help you sleep the night through so that you don't have that
yeah
moment?
I get, if I get just enough, usually right before bed, maybe like 30 minutes before I'm going to bed, I'll take 2 rips out of my vape pen, go brush my teeth, jump into bed, browse around on Facebook for a little bit or whatever, and find something. What I do is I listen to like I'll put on like Netflix, put the phone face down, and put on like a stand-up comedian or listen to like some podcasts or something. But
background noise.
Just some background noise, yeah. Just because I also have like a little bit of like
PTSD.
No, nothing like that. A little bit of tinnitus, so my ears kind of ring sometimes.
Makes sense. Being around things that blow up.
Being around things that blow up, loud equipment, engines, and gunfire. I guess.
Gunfire, right. That's it. Oh yeah, man. M50s.
Yeah. Have you ever been around one?
Yeah. So I played around with the Army. I won an ROTC scholarship and did a bunch of what they call the Ranger Challenge, and so I learned how to do all those. But yeah, shooting an M50 was a part of it, and M16s, and it was interesting for sure.
My favorite thing that I ever got to shoot was the Mark 19.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a belt-fed grenade launcher. Yeah, shoots the 40 Mike, which is the little penis-looking round, I guess.
But a grenade.
Yeah, It's a grenade, and it's belt-fed, and
That's
just
wild.
Yeah, it's got the butterfly trigger, just like the M50, and makes a wicked sound. Yeah, it's just like thump, 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 pop, 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 and it's And then in training, you use what we call the Cheeto puff round, and it just shoots, and it makes a little orange puff. So it's kind of cool. Like you shoot it like into a building, you get it through the window, and it just poof.
And that's the dummy for it, because otherwise that building would be pretty. Wow, that's.
Oh yeah.
Well, so do you find that there are certain varieties that help with your insomnia more than others?
Definitely indicas. And then beyond that, I don't really know much about the terminology. I usually just go to the store and I say, "Give me the strongest indica you got."
Okay, whatever's gonna knock you out.
Yep.
Well, so for me, CBD works pretty much. It'll knock me down hard, which is I think that for a lot of people, they don't experience that.
I always look if they have like a 1-to-1. Right now I got like a Banana Kush 1-to-1.
Yep. That's pretty much, I think, the best of all worlds if you can find something with equal ratios.
Edibles works pretty well too. I got some 5 milligram 1-to-1.
Okay. And so the thing
those you have to kind of take like 45
about
minutes,
an hour,
about
an hour before, but they're going to last a lot longer through the night. And I think for me, that was kind of the thing that I had to discover was that in order for me to sleep through the night, I have to eat something, eat some sort of and I usually just eat a very strong concentrated form of cannabis that we make with alcohol, and it's called full extract cannabis oil, or FECO. Other people call it RSO, but that's
Rick Simpson oil.
Yeah. We don't make it like he did, and it's just a little bit different, but the same idea is that it's again just a very strong concentrated extract of cannabis, and I eat about 1 gram a day of it, and I typically try to eat it about an hour before I go to bed, and that will then hopefully keep me knocked out until about 6. But it depends on what it's made from, what those combination of cannabinoids are. I currently have some straight THC FECO, and it actually amps me up. And so the first time I took it, I did not sleep at all. So oops. And I don't know how come It does that in particular, but now that I know that, I can tell other patients that, hey, this is not going to really be something that's going to knock you down. It's going to actually amplify you. So, and then there's other combinations out there that definitely knock me out. And then, yeah, I smoke a lot. I have for, about 20 years now. But what I've done is I've transitioned from smoking flowers now to mostly concentrates. And so,
Yeah, it's a lot easier on the lungs.
well, and it just, again, yeah, I don't have the time to smoke, an eighth every day. I just don't. And so for me, it's just much more effective to be able to use something where I'm getting pretty much instantaneous relief. Taking 3 hits instead of smoking 3 bowls and then moving on with my life.
Yeah, and it's a lot more like indoor friendly.
That's the other thing too. So yeah, I live in public housing, and it's federally funded. And so, in fact, it's very illegal for me to consume any cannabis, believe it or not just smoking, but having edibles there.
Like having like possession.
Yeah. It's I do have a medical permit. I have my all of my cards in order, I guess you could say, and I've never had any problems. But technically, yeah, they could kick me out for that. And so, with that in mind, I've worked really hard to try and get legislation passed that protects people that live in public housing that are medical cannabis patients in the state of Oregon. I mean, again, we legalized this medically 20 years ago. There's a lot of people that have used it. Close to 100,000 were in the medical program at one time, and to not have those protections in a state where it's generating a lot of money and attention, it just doesn't make sense. Unfortunately, the bill that I was supporting didn't pass this last session. And so now we have to go around again. In Portland in particular, there's something called the Clean Air Act. And the Clean Air Act came along right after they legalized cannabis. And what they did is they wanted to make sure that people could not get together and consume cannabis indoors and put workers at risk. It was really intended for workers, but the reality is that it has this kind of overarching effect. And so there's no place that we can legally get together and consume cannabis as patients or otherwise. And that frankly doesn't make any sense at all. And so, you legalize a substance, you tax it, you promote it, but you don't give people a space to consume it.
I was just reading an article online, and one state I think they had just passed
Colorado is now doing
on-site consumption,
and then Alaska,
I think that's what it was. Yeah,
totally makes
it's
sense.
On-site consumption
Yep.
at dispensaries.
Yep. And so they'll have some sort of a division, a wall, and then you can go and consume. And so
So we're getting closer to kind of Amsterdam rules.
Yeah, and for places like Alaska, that makes sense. The outlets up there are only in a few places. They're in places that are frequented mostly by tourists. Tourists are usually coming in on ships. Ships are, they are beholden to international laws, and so cannabis is not a part of that. And so they wanted people to be able to use cannabis still without breaking the rules. And so that's why they thought these on-site consumption spaces were a good idea. And it, frankly, kind of across the board, that just makes sense to me. You can also kind of monitor people that don't maybe have as much experience with cannabis. If they freak out, you can kind of help them along. There's a lot of good reasons why we should do this. But the bottom line is money. And they basically pushed this Clean Air Act legislation. There's a bunch of health officials, people that, deal with kids and deal with public health that think that indoor cannabis use is a bad idea. And I don't know. So my argument for that is, when you were living in Las Vegas and you would go through the casinos, they still probably allowed cigarette smoking, but you were not overwhelmed with cigarette smoke, were you?
Depends
right.
which one. Yeah.
So the nicer
most
ones
of the ones on the strip, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
But then you get into the Fremont area, or even out towards the South Point, or
so it can be done.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a matter.
But
of
cigarette smoke and cannabis smoke is
right,
a little bit different.
That was the other argument that I had for the politicians.
But were they worried about the secondhand?
Correct. This is what and so I said to them, I'm a medical cannabis user. I'm not a medical cigarette user. I don't use nicotine, and frankly, that shouldn't be a part of the conversation. But those things all get lumped in together. So in fact, you like to smoke cigars. You can go to Portland and you can go to a private cigar club.
Oh yeah, or even just most cigar shops.
Do they even shops have on-site consumption?
Some of them, yeah.
Wow, yeah. And so these are all of our arguments. None of them really. They all kind of fall on deaf ears. So money talks. We'll see how it turns out. I think that if somebody were to come through and say, we have a bunch of money that we want to dedicate to making these spaces, they probably would be like, yeah, no problem. But getting the laws passed has been really a pain.
It's always interesting, how there's some states where it's completely illegal, really illegal. You're doing jail time.
Yeah.
How fucked up is that?
I mean, yeah. So should anybody go to jail for a plant? I mean, I don't personally think so, but that isn't historically how things have been. What is also very disconcerting is that all other drug offenses are based upon a cannabis conversion. And so they're like, if you get caught with 2 pounds, that's like getting caught with an ounce of cocaine. And I'm like, wait a second.
Right.
These are completely different drugs. They have different effects. But sentencing guidelines are based upon this stuff. And so, there's people in jail for very minor offenses. And it kind of blows me away, the amount of money that we waste on that. And in legal states, it also would make sense that they would go and they would absolve any of the prior offenses that are keeping people back, but it's still a fight for sure. I still have friends that cannot get jobs because they were caught with very, very small amounts of cannabis. And that makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it's I forgot where I was going to go with that.
The other side of it, at least in most legal states, is that all of the stuff is all cannabis products are the oversight is through liquor commissions, and so you would think that they would exercise the same rules, and they don't. It's very lopsided, and it's kind of it kind of blows you away sometimes to look at just like, wow, they let those people get away with there's a bar on every corner. There is fairly consistent underage drinking that happens. It's okay.
Yeah, and you can go into any grocery store and buy a bottle of booze, but dispensaries are kind of really limited to where they can operate.
Right.
It was kind of weird. Like here in Oregon City, it was we when we legalized it, what was it, like 2014 recreationally.
Mm-hmm.
We actually didn't have any dispensaries. The county wouldn't allow it, and then I think once they started seeing the money trickle in, they were like, "All right, we better jump on this money train."
So in fact, Sherwood, Oregon, which is not very far away from here, still does not allow recreational cannabis.
Wow.
They allow medical cannabis, And so there is a dispensary on the edge of town, right across from the DMV, that is one of 2 places in the state that only serves medical patients still. But the reality is they're not doing that because they really are for medical patients. They just couldn't get the permit from the county or the city to do that. Across the river in Washington, in Clark County, it is legal in the city of Vancouver and the city of Battleground. You can possess cannabis, you can buy and sell cannabis products, and they even allow growing and processing there. Everywhere else in Clark County, all of the other little unincorporated areas, totally illegal. And so there was a place called Sticky's Pot Shop that was off of Highway 99, which is out near the Clark County Fairgrounds. And they closed this guy down. And they closed him down by actually fining him like $600 a day for being open.
Wow.
It was through these monetary gains, and he just couldn't. I mean, eventually that just piled up, and yeah, so it's very strange how this seems to be a product that's here to stay. Those of us that have been around this for a while laugh because it's like trying to put toothpaste back in a toothpaste tube once it's already gotten out.
How far away do you think we are from ending prohibition? What's the over under?
I think I think within the next 2 presidential cycles, I don't think it will happen in this next one. I think probably the one after that. But I know that.
You know what Trump's ace in the hole is? Like, he's got an ace up his sleeve, and it's just he's gonna blow away so many minds. He's gonna legalize it in.
Do you think that that's going to be his?
I think in 2020.
Statement?
I think in 2020.
And so there is
to get reelected.
There is speculation about that.
And the liberals are just their minds are gonna get blown. They're gonna be like, I don't know how we're supposed to react because this is a good thing, but it's Trump and we're supposed to hate this guy. So, what's gonna happen?
That would definitely upend. If in fact
I still wouldn't vote for him.
No.
It'd be a good move. I support it.
Yeah, I think it is a good move, and I think by and large what we're seeing with CBD and hemp is so we like to call hemp cannabis light, and cannabis light is great for most people in the world because it's a great introduction to regular cannabis, and if people are foolish enough to think that those that are involved in the industry are doing anything besides pushing this as an alternative to cannabis, they're fools. I mean, really, this is what's going on. You're seeing a lot more of what we call craft hemp. And so we can go online right now and we can actually order very flavorful, pretty good looking hemp flowers that we can get delivered to our doorstep and we can roll up into doobies and smoke. It's not going to get us high necessarily, but at least we're going to get the flavor and the experience. And soon enough, places like Kansas where this shit still is getting people thrown in jail on a regular basis. Man, there are so many people smoking craft hemp out there right now. It's ridiculous. The other side of it is that you're going to start seeing hemp cigarettes sold in mini markets, supermarkets.
Like Marb Greens.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Camel Green.
Yeah, and it would. I think that it's kind of smart for a lot of these tobacco companies to get in on the hemp thing, just because the tobacco products that they're producing are pretty nasty, and it's kind of tapped out. There's only so much they can do with tobacco. It's a very new venue. I was blown away that Walgreens.
You know what I would be really interested in is because I used to chew tobacco for many years. I actually have been off of it for probably about 3 months now. Probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do.
I bet. But
could you
could definitely make an alternative to
could
that.
you do like a cannabis chew?
They exist already.
Do they really?
They do, yeah. And,
Where would I find that?
in Northern California is where I know of. I'll see if I can. Yeah. Who would have thunk? But basically,
Some fucking
I've-
some guy like me who's just like,
Some
how
red-
else can I consume?
some redneck hippie that's like
Exactly.
That's like, damn, bro, if I could only get this in my chew, in my lip here. No, it pretty much any product that you can think of at this point can be infused with cannabis.
You know what I'm really interested in is making it into a butter.
Have you ever done that?
No.
Oh man. So we're getting ready to do. So you don't want to. You probably would not want to make it into butter, but coconut oil. And coconut oil is great too because you can actually then rub it on your skin.
Yeah.
And it helps so much. The other thing, which this might be a little bit beyond you at this point, but you can make that coconut oil into suppositories, and that works really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I have a buddy that is also in a chair, and I was talking about this, and his girlfriend was like, "Well, that's what I do for business." I was like, "What?" And she makes suppositories.
What else do you mix in with it, or is it just?
I mean, primarily it's can of coconut oil and beeswax, and you chill it. You put it into a mold, and booyah! It's a really good way to do it. A lot of quads are dealing with having a bowel program. You have to throw something up there anyway. Might as well be coconut oil. It's gonna help. Really moisturize.
This is coconut oil infused with
Cannabis, yeah. And it's a you can make it so that it's not overwhelmingly strong, so that it doesn't hammer you. Because again, this is pretty much what you're going to do for the day.
Yeah.
But no, it's a great way to do it. A crock pot, some coconut oil, and some cannabis is all you need, and then you have to strain it out. Go slow and low. Yeah, we use pantyhose to strain it.
All right.
But cheesecloth or even a strainer. And yeah, I will take like a pound of coconut oil, an ounce of weed, put it on the lowest setting for 24 hours, let it steep. It's gonna stink pretty bad, and so I put it outside, and yeah, you strain it out, and then you can mix it into anything pretty much. You can make brownies, you can make, again, like I said, you can make topicals out of it, which is great to rub on your skin. It's super easy to do.
I have some THC and CBD oil that I give to my masseuse every time I go get a massage. And she mixes it in with her oil, and that is the best hour, 90 minutes of my life.
Yeah. So I wish my physical therapist would do this, but he's incredibly afraid of, I guess, getting high. The reality is you don't really absorb. They do have transdermal patches, and
I don't get any psychoactive effects from it.
Yeah, you don't. But it's really great for your skin.
It's so great when you get like a knot in the shoulder, or when your biceps or triceps like tighten up. You're just like, I mean, it elevates your massage.
And so,
you know what? I'm surprised that's not even a thing yet. Like,
it is. It's becoming. Yeah. But
I'm so out of touch with like what's going on in the world.
I mean, I think that the whole like hemp CBD thing is kind of been the game changer. What's difficult in the spinal cord community is that a lot of people are taking pain medications, and so they're on a pain contract, and they really want to try something else, but they're afraid of testing positive. Most CBD products are an isolated product, and that means that there's no THC left in it. It's gone through a process, and they've removed all of that. And so they can, in fact, take those products. It's legal. The 2018 Hemp Farm Bill passed, which made hemp legal to farm and buy and sell and trade across the nation. So unless that hemp product had some THC in it, pain patients should be able to take it and not have any issues. But I see so much fear about that people are really reluctant to do it. And again, unless you're getting, on a contract and your doctor randoms you, a lot of clinics have, I can just talk about my own experience. When I went in to the pain clinic, the first doctor I talked to was reluctant and had me go to talk to a different doctor. And he was like, yeah, cannabis is not a problem at all. The problem was they wanted to put me on Suboxone. And, I have a lot of chronic pain. I have a lot of other pain. What works best is like, a Vicodin, maybe once or twice a month. I do not need to be on Suboxone. I don't need to be on methadone. I don't need to be on any of this other stuff.
Are you still taking Vicodin?
No, I don't take any narcotics. I haven't for going on a decade now. I took oxycodone pretty consistently going through grad school. There was a point in time that I actually stopped cannabis and just relied on pain medication. I was racing my hand cycle for the Portland State cycling team, and I just, more than anything, my lungs needed to clear up a little bit. And somehow in my head, it made it okay that I could take oxycodone, a pain medication, and race a hand bike, but using cannabis and racing a hand bike somehow was... Anyway, that's what I did. And so for about a year, I just didn't use it, and then decided that I wanted to use it again, and then decided that I did not need to be on the pain medication. And so...
I don't even remember the last pain pill I took.
The problem with that is now when I do have genuine pain and I go to see the doctor, they're not going to give me anything, just because the rules have changed. And, so that's, I'm on Medicare. I live in public housing. I'm a part of the system. And again, federal housing doesn't recognize cannabis as being a medicine. Medicare limits the amount of pain medication they give out now to 1 week. And so what's happening in my apartment complex is there are a lot of people that have been on pain meds for a super duper long time. We're talking like years and years and years. And they can't get their scripts anymore. And they are not cannabis users. And so, man, they just go out and score some heroin. And they start shooting that shit up.
Lady H.
And it's,
And that's kind of like, that explains pretty much in a nutshell, like why there's this like really bad epidemic.
Right.
Yeah, I hate to use that word because it gets thrown around all the time, but I mean,
well, it's
the appropriate word for it. It's a fucking epidemic. I mean, I personally know 2 guys that have overdosed and died at a very young age. I mean, both under 24.
So they're consistently shooting up in my parking spot at my apartment complex, and there's nothing like getting out of your car into your wheelchair and looking down and seeing spent needles and seeing just paraphernalia. And I don't want to deal with that. That's not the quality of life that I want to have.
Do you ever feel unsafe living downtown?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, totally. All the time.
Every time I go down there, I'm always looking over my shoulder and getting in and out of my truck. I'm making sure it's like, well lit space. And I've had bouncers, kind of escort me out to my car just because you kind of get this vibe and you're like, all right, something's weird.
Yeah, it definitely has become a less friendly environment for hanging out. I personally haven't had any incidents, but there've been a lot of riots, like right outside of my window, like literally down the street from where I live. The Proud Boys, all these crazy anti-fascists. I mean, all of this political stuff is going on. And I live very close to downtown Portland, and that stuff then spills over. And so then there's cops in riot gear, and there's all these dynamics going on. And honestly...
You were down there during the Occupy...
Oh, yeah.
All that,
oh, yeah. It's been an evolution for sure.
Well, I mean, Portland's always been that city.
It has.
I mean,
it is
little Beirut.
People love to protest anything here. It is not the place for somebody in a wheelchair. I felt very unsafe seeing both, police in full riot gear and seeing all of these protesters like engaging them, like fighting on the street,
Oh yeah.
throwing things. And yeah, man, that's just not a cool place for
you've seen some pretty good, like in the last just 4 years, because there's like the Black Lives.
Oh yeah.
You had the Black Lives Matter. You had all the Donald Trump protests.
Those have been by far the
and all the Antifa, and
she's been around to see some of that stuff, and it's just like, yeah. And she lives in a big city too, but they don't protest things like we do, and so it's like, well, what's that about? But again, we've given a special ticket for Portlanders to do this stuff, and granted, they also drive in from the boonies to protest.
Oh yeah,
so
keep Portland weird.
Anyway, yeah, I truly wish that there were more people that use cannabis instead of narcotics, just in the sense that I don't like seeing people reverting to having to use heroin because they've gotten cut off of their Medicare prescribed.
Oh, the impact is just, I mean,
and
you can't even compare a heroin user and a pothead.
No, but again, they like to do that, and they like to. There are these nuances of. It's discrimination, really, is what it is. It continues to be reefer madness. It's like I have to explain constantly to people that I use it as a medicine. Most people that I know use it as a medicine. We're stuck in this recreational system, but man, I just had lunch with some really close friends of mine, and the gal that I had lunch with, she had a double mastectomy not too long ago, and has used cannabis pretty exclusively. And then the gentleman, he currently has prostate cancer and is trying to only use cannabis to treat that, but is getting to the point where he really needs to look at some other options because it's getting out of control. Those are medical cannabis patients. We are not out there because it's fun. 420 is awesome. I think it's great that it puts it in the public view and that people, we call it normalization. But at the same time,
I certainly have no problem in using it recreationally. And I mean, like the J we smoked just like an hour ago.
That's right.
That was completely recreational, and we're about
in about
5 minutes.
5 minutes from a bunch.
Yeah.
But there are.
There's no such thing as a recreational heroin user, though.
No, there is not.
And it's a true addiction, and you go down that spiral. And it always. I'm guaranteeing it's probably 99.9% of heroin users start off on prescription pain pills.
Yes, and
from spraining an ankle or fucking breaking an arm, and then it just spirals from there.
And that was the thing that always kind of blew me away, is they said, cannabis is the gateway. And honestly, for me at least, when I first used cannabis, I was like, I'm going to be using this until I die. It just is something, for me at least, that it has a very a homeostatic effect on me. It just balances things out. So I was injured, and I've had all these other things. And then about 3 years ago, again, I live in public housing, and there's a lot of desperate people. My upstairs neighbor, her name was Charlotte. She was a wheelchair user, not paralyzed. Decided that was it. She was done. And so she took a swan dive out of the 12th story window.
Jesus.
I live on the 11th floor. It was in October, and my window was open, and she hit it as she went by. And so what do you do when you live on the 11th floor? And so I went out and I watched her die.
Wow.
And I was the first responder. I dealt with the police. I dealt with all that. After that happened, my brain, just something switched, and I couldn't sleep anymore. for a month, like legit, like just couldn't ever calm down. And like, it was really bad too. It was during football season. I couldn't watch college football because every time I heard the sound of those, dude, it sent me through the roof. So I have PTSD. This is pretty classic PTSD. It's what happens to a lot of people. I just didn't think that it would happen. I didn't think that I would be affected like that, and it really fucked me up bad. And so I was lucky enough.
Oh yeah, I mean, to see that, I couldn't even imagine.
So I was lucky. Yeah, I was lucky enough that I went to my my spinal cord doc, and she was like, "Dude, what's going on?" No. And so sent me to a neuropsychologist, and I spent a couple of years in therapy, and probably should still be there. But one of the first things they did is they wanted to prescribe me these pretty serious drugs to keep me from having flashbacks and nightmares. And I was like, I bet there is some cannabis product that is going to work better than this. And so I started looking at a bunch of different varieties and like trying to figure out like how I felt using different varieties, which is tough. I actually had to keep a journal, and I smoke a lot of weed, so there was a lot of work. And so I started noticing that there were certain ones that made me feel relaxed, and that they all, that's the time. That is 4:19. So they were all related to hops, as in like the stuff they put in beer.
Okay.
And what I found out is it's a terpene, and a terpene is an aromatic oil, and basically everything has terpenes, all perfumes, all foods, and these aromatic oils, they do weird things. And the one that I was looking for is something called humulene. And so if I can find cannabis that's high in humulene, it kills my PTSD better than any drug that I've ever found that they can give. And if you look at research, that's basically what they're finding too, is that especially with vets, and
they've been doing some experimentation with was it MDMA
as
too,
well,
right?
yeah, and
psilocybin as well. And Oregon's on track to become the first state to legalize psilocybin for medical use.
Use, right? Which
hey, guess what time it is?
Time.
There you go, buddy.
Cheers. Ooh, wow. This PAX has got the cool.
Yeah, PAX. It's definitely one of my favorite pens. Super quad friendly.
Super friendly. Period. Like except that I wash them pretty consistently. Like because they're so compact, you just will put them in a pocket, and then lo and behold, they get. And they don't recover very well from a lot of water. The cartridges sometimes will make it. Hey,
I didn't know that.
Amy.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to hit it? How rude. I'm sorry.
She loves the pack. So, again, this group that I deal with, there's, I would say the average age is probably 60-ish. And most of these people are not, have not been exposed to cannabis. And they're a little afraid, and so like I have to like have field trips where we go to dispensaries and like. This is
well, dude, it's amazing how there's still like that misconception, like you said earlier. Durban poison. It is. But yeah, there's like this really just bad misconception. You said earlier, like you were talking about reefer madness, and I used to get my hair cut from this lady when I was living down in Alabama.
Oh.
She was just this old, where it's still like 100% illegal. They're still throwing a dude in jail today for having a joint on him.
Right.
But I was just getting into it with my barber, just this old Southern lady, 6 years old. Just you can tell, she had the accent. She had deep like Southern roots, and she we got into the topic, and she was talking about pain pills and. I got on the subject. I was like, I'm in Oregon. It's
this is legal.
It's
this is
legal,
it. Yeah.
and it's amazing how many I guess it's a bad example. I was gonna say less heroin addicts, but it's not. But there's less pill poppers. It seems like.
Yeah, I think that, and if you look at a lot of legalized states, they have seen a reduction in the use of pain medications, and honestly in the use of heroin, which is, these are all good things. I'm not positive if cannabis is the route for people to get off of narcotics necessarily. I think that for some medications, some maybe for pills, but I don't think that heroin addicts are really going to be able to use cannabis to transition off of that. In fact, what I've seen, because I've given a bunch of weed to a bunch of heroin addicts, and they just they sell it and they buy more heroin.
Yeah, this lady, she totally believed like the whole gateway myth, and like she thought, you're going to smoke a joint one day and then, next month you're going to be doing blow.
That's right. What's scary are people that think that it makes you violent, that think that it makes you
the complete opposite.
Schizophrenic.
Oh, dude, I used to be super aggressive before I started smoking.
Yeah, and
yeah, it's definitely mellowed me out a lot.
And this is these are the conceptions that are out there that we have to battle sometimes, and it's like, man, and I think it's awesome we live on the West Coast, because there is this whole, from California all the way through Canada at this point. And then all the way up to Alaska. Right. It's all this West Coast is legalized.
Yeah.
But again,
the green wall.
But like you said, you go to Alabama and it certainly is not like that. And so how are we going to get places like Alabama to change? How are we going to... And like you said, it's probably going to take this big federal...
What was really crazy was when Utah signed over to medical, because we used to kind of joke, and my brother and I would have these conversations because we were both living in the South together, and I was like, dude, what do you think is gonna be the last state to legalize it? And like in Alabama and in Mississippi, the lottery's still illegal.
Wow, I did not know that.
There's only 6 states where the lottery's illegal.
Huh.
It's I want to say Alaska, Hawaii, Nevada, Utah, Mississippi, and Alabama.
All be.
Yeah.
And so do they have other sin taxes? Do they do? I mean, liquor is still a thing there, but do they have
only they have dry county still too.
That's wild.
Yeah, Alabama's a weird place.
That is wild.
Yeah. One of the weirdest things about Birmingham and most of Alabama that I saw, there's not a lot of sidewalks. And that stems back to back during segregation, and you'd only have black and white neighborhoods.
Okay.
And it was to keep the black people out of the white neighborhoods. They didn't want them walking around. All the white people had cars. Most of the black people were pedestrian, so they didn't want them walking around. They don't have sidewalks. And they still don't have sidewalks. It's kind of fucking weird.
So I kind of sort of experienced this a little bit in the camp.
It sucks being in a wheelchair because you have to push in the street.
Right. And it's 2019 and we have the ADA, and it's like, come on now. There's got to be a lot of people that would benefit from having, protected walkways, sidewalks, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Baby strollers, all that.
So out west, out here, when all these places legalized, initially they were medical cannabis dispensaries, and a big thing for me was making sure that they were actually accessible, which was not the case. In 2013 and 2014, when the shops first were coming online, it was a crapshoot. There were very few places, in fact, that were accessible to standard.
That's fucking weird, because that's one of your demographics.
That is a huge demographic, especially if you're medical. So in fact, right now there's a place in Washington that continues to be not accessible. They literally are up 2 sets of stairs, and I can't even throw a rock to get. And I went to these folks grand opening years ago, and they're like, oh, we'll build ramps, we'll build. But they haven't, and I don't think that that's on their radar anymore, because again they've transitioned into this whole recreational. Let's just make a bunch of tax money. But they are businesses. They are beholden to the ADA. And so now it's like trying to figure out, okay, well, who am I going to go after next? And some places are pretty good.
The dispensary that I go to is just right up the road. It's an old Pizza Hut. Yeah, Electric Lettuce. Shout out.
Okay, yeah. No, which is, and I think that so places like Electric Lettuce, places that have come into spots and have really like rebranded them, have done a good job in making them accessible. But then
I've always joked because they still have the drive-through window.
Really?
And I'm like, man, like you got to figure out a way to just make this a drive-through, and like have an app, and I just place my order, say exactly what I want, like, hey, I want two of these like pre-rolled joints, a cartridge of this, and
some edibles,
some brownies or something, and like come pick it up, and they get it ready for you. You just roll through the window.
So those were legal like that in Washington State, and it pissed off lawmakers so much. They were livid, but it was awesome, especially again for those of us that are high enough level that getting in and out of a vehicle is a total pain in the ass. And so it really did make sense that you literally could drive up and place an order. They would put it together in a bag for you, and off you went.
That's amazing. Yet you can still drive up and get a latte and have some chick in a bikini serve it to you.
That's right, you can. And I mean, I don't think I know in California for sure you can definitely drive through and get liquor, and so.
Oh, Arizona, Texas.
Okay, so again,
they have in Nevada, in Las Vegas, they have a drive-through margarita bar that they seal it with the, like when you go
the
like,
boba tea.
The boba tea, yeah. They seal it with the boba tea, and they give you the straw.
Because clearly you're not going to use that.
You're not going to do that at all, especially when you're in Vegas and it's 105 degrees out and you're thirsty and you're an alcoholic.
Well, and so places like Vegas. So were you there when they legalized and when they started? So Las Vegas has the world's largest dispensary.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like it has this crazy thing on the floor when you roll. It's like an aquarium, and when you roll over it, like fish follow you, and it's very very high end.
I'll have to check that out next time I'm there.
But I've heard their products are totally crappy, and I wonder how. I mean, I'm fairly biased because I'm from the Northwest, but I would be interested to see if you had tried products in both places.
No, I didn't live in Vegas that long, only 2 years. I'm pretty sure I left before it was legalized. Yeah, because that was recently, right?
Yeah, last.
I left there in like 2014.
Okay.
But I'm going back in November. I'm doing a marathon, or a half marathon, I should say.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Did you not? You don't know about what I'm doing?
No.
Oh, dude.
Tell me.
So it's kind of a little brainchild I've had. So when I was living in Vegas in 2012, I moved there. I signed up to do a half marathon, the rock and roll half, because you get to run up and down the strip at night.
Oh yeah.
And I did it, and it was an amazing time.
In a pushchair or
in my rugby chair.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
That's
I don't believe in doing marathons in hand cycles.
I'm not a big fan of that, but
like go ahead and do it and have fun and enjoy the race, but like don't feel like you accomplished a marathon, because a marathon's like a pinnacle of human achievement.
And pushing 12 miles or 26 miles is a long ways, man. Especially in a rugby chair.
Yeah, 13.1. It was cool too because I didn't really train for it. I didn't have time because it was like right in the middle of rugby season. So what I ended up doing was my gym had an indoor track, and I did a half marathon on it. Like this is like 2 weeks before the half marathon. I just went to the gym, did 13.1 miles with one of those elevation training masks.
Oh wow!
And a 20-pound medicine ball. And the whole time I was thinking like, all right, like just make it suck now, because on race day like it won't suck this much ever. So like, you know, once you drill that in your head, like you're not going to quit. You're going to finish the marathon. You're going to have fun.
That's a very Marine sort of
approach.
thought process.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, all right, just
pain first, and everything else will be all right.
Well, it's there's a saying. It's, you know, like the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war.
Huh. That is a very good saying.
Yeah.
So how did it go for? I mean, at night, really didn't train for it in a rugby chair.
Talking about the marathon on race day?
Yeah.
Oh, it was awesome. The beginning sucked because so on that day it was like super windy and it was blowing from the south. And the first 2 miles, so you start at the Mandalay Bay and then you go south, I think like 2 or 2.5 miles to the Welcome to Las Vegas sign. You U-turn it there, then you go north, all the way down the strip, past the, you know, the stratosphere, to Fremont. You turn around at Fremont, and it was nice because, you know, the whole time you're going north, I was like a fucking sailboat.
Yeah,
I mean,
you had it.
Yeah, I was just flying through. It was like when you're playing Mario Kart and you got the star.
Yeah.
And I was just weaving through people.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was so much fun. So I signed up to do it this year, and I put a challenge out to the Oscar Mike Militia team. I was like, all right, who else wants to do this? And if we get enough people, we're gonna dress up as Mario Kart characters.
That is awesome.
Yeah, so we got right now we got like 6 guys signed up to do it.
Yeah, so Oscar Mike seems like a pretty, a really cool foundation that you got involved with. Like, are they from are they from Alabama? Where are they from?
Illinois.
Okay.
Yeah, just outside of Rockford.
And so, is it Marine or is it just military?
It's all veterans.
Okay.
And then we're also starting to help out with civilians. We got a really cool civilian named Tyler who's really involved with doing like the OCRs, like all the Spartan races.
Yeah.
We got a partnership with Spartan. So I got a buddy, Tyler. He's got cerebral palsy, and he does I'm pretty sure he's probably done like a dozen Spartan races, and
which is a whole.
The guy's just all about it. Yeah, he gets out there in the grid chair, and
that's wild.
Yeah, it's a cool organization. We got another quad that's in Moab right now for the what is it? The Easter Safari, the Jeep Easter Safari. So he's just out there just 4-wheeling up and down, you know.
In an accessible vehicle though.
Yeah, well, I think they just picked him up and threw him in like a Wrangler, which
is super cool. I have a friend from my hometown that works for a suspension company and is out there doing that, and I didn't realize how big an event, but like that's where people go.
Yeah, it's huge. Moab, have you ever been?
Just been through there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like
dude, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Have you been to Arches or like Canyonlands?
Nope.
Yeah, those are 2 reasonably accessible parks.
So, so you've driven pretty much all throughout the U.S.
Yeah, I got like 9 states or 8 states to go, but I've driven all over the U.S. I did when I went to see like Moab and Arches and all that. I did all that in like 5 days. I went to 5 national parks in 5 days.
Wow.
Yeah, it was an incredible trip.
But that's very.
I'd love to go back. We were just kind of in a rush because my cousin from Australia was visiting, and the veteran games were in Salt Lake City that year, so he was visiting from Australia, and he was just looking for this like big trip to do, and I was like, all right, man, we'll road trip down to Utah, we'll go see those 5 national parks, and then we'll go to Salt Lake for a little bit.
Go to the games.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it was an incredible trip. And then he went on with us to Chicago. And then I spent a month out in like Rockford helping out with like Oscar Mike and doing stuff, and then he kind of went down from Chicago. I think he went to like Texas and Tennessee and like New York.
So really had a pretty good look across the U.S. of a bunch
Yeah,
of bunch
well,
of stuff.
because when you think of like the U.S., I mean, you got to think of it as like 50 different countries because every state is just really unique.
And so, like, when you were traveling, I mean, there are definitely certain parks that are more accessible than others, certain states that are more accessible than others.
Oh, yeah.
Did you find that there's like a standard? That there's like a basic? Or is it just like all over?
Most parks, like, well, the welcome center, like the information center.
Yeah.
Usually, I don't think I've ever ran into one that was not, inaccessible. And then the major parks, like the big parks, Yellowstone, I wonder some like Arches, Canyonlands, Zion, Bryce Canyon. They make an effort to make like some accessible trails. And then what I like to do is I like to go into the information center and talk to the rangers and have them circle on the map like what we can do and what's easy, and then if I have a question about like a trail, like okay, like hey, this trail looks fine, like it's flat, like and they'll be like, oh, there's like just 4 steps at the end. I'm like, okay, 4 steps, I can deal with 4 steps.
Okay. Yeah, so we recently went to the coast and went to Yaquina Head, and I had never been there.
Oh yeah,
and
the lighthouse.
Yeah, the lighthouse, and so it's kind of a similar sort of thing. I thought it was cool. They gave me the pass.
To get through the gate.
Yeah,
to drive right down to where the seals were.
Yeah, well, and so
were the whales out?
And so the whales were out. We didn't have enough time, and so they will actually open up gates to go all the way down. I didn't know that. It looked like it, but it was like, oh whoa. Anyway, it seems like again there's a huge effort to make things accessible, but they can't pave the world. They can't pave all that stuff, and so there's just certain places that are. But we thought that was great, and I want to do more traveling.
I thought Yellowstone was really accessible.
Okay.
They got like kind of like the boardwalk system. A lot of it's you're driving around and.
Sure. Yeah, but that would be on the list for sure.
Yeah, you can see like to get down to like Yellowstone Falls and all the hot springs and Old Faithful, obviously.
Yeah. Have you been to Eastern Oregon at all? Like the Painted Hills?
No, not out that way.
They also have the boardwalk system, and that's probably the most accessible place that I've been in that they've built dedicated for.
That's
folks.
A state park, or?
Yeah. And it's going towards Bend. I'm trying to think. It's off of. Can't remember the name of the river.
Like the Deschutes?
It is off the Deschutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But super accessible. Pretty fun to just go. Like right now, I'm sure it's blooming. And so then, I'm sure that there's like going towards the coast. There's a bunch of little places that are. So that's more what I would like to do this summer is figure out where accessible campgrounds are, get out and about, and do some more outdoorsy type things.
I got a buddy that works in the forestry department that I can hook you up with.
Oh, really?
And actually, he might actually appreciate some feedback on, what's going on with different state parks and.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the spinal cord group is also trying to do some stuff with that.
There's a really good app called All Trails.
Okay.
That it's just kind of like a community, and you can filter parks by accessibility.
Okay, That's
Yeah,
what I
and then
mean,
there'll be
yeah.
like kind of like reviews, and it'd be really cool if someone would start, a wheelchair specific website where it's just like parks.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, all right, this park was completely accessible, parking was good, bathrooms, accessible enough.
I have a friend that is she has CP, and she does kind of have that for the Oregon park system, and I think I can't remember what it's called, Access for All, maybe.
I've heard of something like that.
She's in a power chair though, and so yeah, that's the Washington. The Washington State Park System does a really good job of making sure that almost all of their campgrounds have at least a couple of accessible spots. All of their like the benches for eating and stuff all have extensions so that you can wheel up underneath them. Yeah, I think it's at least up there. It seems like they've come a little bit further than we are around here. But yeah, I want to get out and camp and do all this stuff. Like, I mean, it's summer in the Northwest. It's gonna be nice.
Yeah, it's the best time to get out and
go to some
it's
festivals.
Oh yeah, and it's always awesome getting like off of the pavement and like out into nature, and especially I'm sure for you, like especially like as a city dweller,
Yeah, man.
to get out
I mean,
into the nature.
I'm involved in a lot of projects in the city park system with accessibility, but it is very different than actually going and camping and connecting with nature like that, and being in the woods and
Oh man, and just cooking on a fire.
yeah. These are summer goals. So now the state park system has kind of an interesting approach towards cannabis and smoking in general, which is they allow it in cars and around campfires.
Oh yeah.
And it's everywhere else is verboten.
So to smoke a joint, you have to start a campfire first.
That's basically. And if you think about it, like, if you're
that sounds like a good time.
I mean, if you're in a camp spot, you're probably going to have a fire going anyway. And so it's just like,
I remember, I forget the exact date, but it was like in 2014 when we legalized it. Mm-hmm. The day before that, I invited some buddies over here, and we had a fire in the backyard, and we all smoked our last illegal joint before prohibition ended.
Yes, it was wild. So I was in downtown, and I think that was in July. It was July the 1st, 2014 that they had the big legalization. And so I gave away a pound of weed in downtown in grams, and it was wild. It took about 6 minutes. So for those of you that don't know, a gram is about 450, or a pound. I gave away a pound, which is about 450 grams. And so in 6 minutes, 450 people, there were 3 of us got grams of weed. So maybe a couple of them got 2. But it was wild. They had a big smoke out on the Burnside Bridge. Who knew?
It's going to be amazing. Like one day we're going to have to explain to our kids like the things that we had to do to get marijuana back in the day.
Oh, the stories that we'll tell, and so that's it too, is that now we live in an era where it just is available,
Well, and then like your drug dealer, so to say, or your bud tender or whatever they're calling them now, like the person that works at the dispenser, they're just so educated on different strains. And like I'm learning way more about marijuana in the last 4 years than ever. It used to just be, hey, here's $20, give me a dub.
Right, exactly.
And it's just like what I got was what I got, and
it was either good or not. And now, yeah, exactly. There's all these combinations of things, and so to that end, I do a little bit of seed breeding, and we really strive to find varieties that work for people in wheelchairs. And so this last year we had the first of what's called the wheelie or sour. It's actually called sour wheelie, and it's a strain that. So I grow with another guy that's also in a wheelchair. He's a paraplegic, and lives down.
He does all the hands-on work.
He does most of the hands-on work. It depends though. There've been times where he's gotten sick, and so then it was my turn to go in the garden. We have it's a really interesting setup. He lives in a bungalow, and his garden is in his basement, and he rides a stair chair up and down to the basement and uses a power wheelchair in the basement.
The stair chair, like the thing you see on TV.
Oh yeah, man. And those things are total pieces. And so sometimes it works well, sometimes it won't get charged up enough. So, I mean, lots of...
Has he ever gotten stuck like halfway?
Dude, yeah, he has, and I have as well. The worst thing is actually the power wheelchair that we used. It died one time in the middle of his flowering room, which is the furthest away, and so I had to actually drag myself across the floor and then up the stairs, get into the stair chair, and then to get back into my regular wheelchair. And,
wow! What a pain in the ass.
Huge amount of work, and fairly unpredictable, but. We've produced some pretty awesome cannabis out of there, and I would imagine we've grown at least 1,000 different varieties over we've been doing this for about 15 years. So anyway, yeah, it's pretty fascinating now that there's a lot of talk about exactly what ratios work best for people. I was going to say we should look on Instagram and Facebook and answer some of the questions.
Yeah, there was one.
Yeah. And I don't remember exactly.
Pull it up real quick.
What he had asked, but I thought it had to do with variety.
Yeah, well, what we'll do is we'll answer the question and we'll wrap this thing up. Because we're approaching an hour and a half.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good target.
Yeah, have stuff to edit and
sorry, here we go. Captain TY. That's actually Tyler.
Oh, right on.
The OCR guy I was just telling you about. He wanted to ask, what got you into medical cannabis and what strains would you advise for chronic pain and muscle spasticity? And he's got that like CP spasm. I don't know if that's different from quad spasm, but
yeah, a little bit. And so I have a really interesting paper right here that's called Cannabis Effects on Spasticity and Spinal Cord Injury, and it actually is a research study that was done quite a while ago through I don't remember exactly who did this. So there's a lot of information out there, and it seems like it's definitely getting better as time goes on. For me, it seems to be that THC works best, and so I don't usually go towards CBD varieties. But what the research says is that CBD in fact kills seizures and spasms. Kind of across the board. And so that would be my recommendation, is try out something that's got a really high CBD ratio, like a 20-1. I grow a variety that's called Harley Sue, and it's a 20-1. And so it has just a little bit of THC in it. And it works great for two things. The number one thing that it does is it absolutely smashes anxiety. We do not know why it does that, but it is the most effective anti-anxiety medication that I have ever found.
I think it just mellows you out.
I mean,
right?
But there's something else about like the fear that people have, that true, like having an anxiety attack and feeling like there's these weird body sensations that people have. There's like all these other like a cascade of negative thoughts. And anyway, this particular one, it just stops it dead in its tracks. And then the other thing that it does is it kills seizures and spasms really well. It leaves you pretty clear-headed. For pain, though, what we know is that CBD doesn't really bind to the same receptors that kill pain. THC actually does bind to those receptors. And so the best thing, again, is to have a ratio. And so I like a 1-to-1. And so it still tastes like cannabis. It still has really good terpenes. It still gives me a decent quote unquote buzz. But it's not overwhelming by any means. And then usually I have a balanced ratio, or try to find a balanced ratio of CBD. And that, again, like no more spasms. And it also, I have a lot of bladder weird things go on, and it really affects my bladder spasms.
Yeah, that's one thing we didn't actually mention is it helps me like retain way more piss.
Right. And so if I'm getting a little dysreflexic and I'm not able to cath immediately, cannabis again will just kind of give me the ability to go a longer period of time.
I'm waiting for the day it's federally legal. That way we can just smoke right before getting on a plane.
This is most places in the world have smoking lounges and vaping lounges, and they absolutely don't care what you are smoking or vaping in those lounges. I know for a fact that in Amsterdam, in a lot of places in Europe, in the Middle East, they don't care. In
that's
America,
good to know. I'm going to Amsterdam in June, so that's very good to know.
There you go. So the varieties that I look for, the things that I look for more, even so than THC or CBD, are the terpenes. And again, because my PTSD kind of affects me the way that it does, I need cannabis to really regulate that. And
what are terpenes? That's a new word that I've picked up around the pot shop.
So terpenes are in fact aromatic oils, and they are the things that are flavoring most of the products that we use. And so a good example of that is a citrus cleaner. So citrus cleaner, it is almost pure what they call limonene. And so it has a lime or orange smell. And what it is it's made from the essential oils of the rinds of citrus. And so it's just this very concentrated, it actually is, can be used as a solvent. And so when you spray it on a surface, it actually dissolves grease and things like that. But it has this very strong citrus aroma. And so there's a bunch of different terpenes that are out there. Pinene is one of them. And so it smells like pine needles, and it gets you, it wakes you up, and it's pretty energetic. Linalool smells like lavender, and it makes you super duper mellow. And if you have strains of cannabis that are purple, they usually have linalool in them. Humulene is the one that I go to, and it is a lot like hops. So that's, very super mellow, what they have in beer. And so these terpenes are really, there's a lot of them in cannabis, and they don't know exactly how or why, but they really seem to help regulate all of the other things that are going on with it. And so, for instance, that Durban poison, it's got a terpene that's called terpinolene, and terpinolene smells like turpentine, tastes like turpentine. And so certain samples of that are so like this weird gassiness that, man, it's sometimes it's almost off-putting.
Yeah.
So what they're learning too is that you can take like CBD and mix it with terpenes, and you can get different effects with that. And so that seems to be where a lot of medical cannabis therapy is going towards, is like isolating specific cannabinoids and specific terpenes, and then recombining them in a way that works for people. This group that I run is pretty fascinating. And so last month we had a registered pharmacist by the name of Victoria Starr come in, and what she does is she does personalized medical treatments. And so she looks at all the meds that you're taking. She'll have you do a genetic test, and then she will come up with a formula using cannabis as to what is going to most benefit you, what you're going to be able to reduce pharmaceutically. And again, this is somebody that is like working in the medical world, and so
it sounds like a really good person to know.
Yeah, these are and the hope is that there will be more people like that, and that this is going to be a frontline therapy instead of being a backdoor therapy.
Right. Yeah.
Which unfortunately,
I mean, bring it from like the black market up to a professional medical level. Like,
which is this is where we should be with it. There are a lot of people that are suffering, particularly with really rare conditions, and cannabis seems to be the breakthrough for them, and so it just doesn't make sense that we wouldn't give them therapies that work. So that's my hope, is that it continues, that we normalize it, that people can celebrate.
I give it 5 years prohibition.
Yeah, I think
within the next presidential term, whether it's Trump or
somebody else,
whoever.
These are really fascinating questions, and it will also it's going to profoundly affect our economics. Canada has legalized, and what I can tell you is that all the people I know in Canada have returned to the gray market because the recreational legal products that they have there just are not very good. And so they're, all these things have to shake out when you bring a new industry on, and it's kind of fascinating. I hope that in 5 years it's legalized. I also hope that my insurance company pays for all of it in 5 years. That's my big thing. Again, I don't take narcotics anymore. My insurance paid for all the narcotics that I could ever eat. They have never once paid for a single gram of cannabis for me. I average probably, $300 a month. Even to this day, where I'm also producing and
I feel like 300's on the high side.
Yeah, I use a lot of product.
Yeah.
I mean, just the oil that I consume, typically is about $15 a gram, and I'm eating a gram a day.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's a trip. Yeah.
But that in opioids would be, who knows?
Yeah. I just don't even, when I get old and there aren't any other options, give me all the dope in the world. But until then, I'm doing just fine, yeah.
All right, man. I think we're going to wrap on that one.
This has been great. Thank you for
I'm glad you came,
having me on. The equipment is top notch. This will make it really good for all your future guests too.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get the table. The tables will gonna get built, and then get these mics on some boom arms, and
this will be.
Got some blackout curtains for these windows, and kind of worked out. Just really I don't know. Felt right.
It does. It feels good.
Felt right. I'm having a lot of fun doing it.
That's it. So sweet. Thank you again for having me on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming.